everybody, and welcome back to my vlog. Today I want to talk about a topic that I have a lot of experience with. I've gone through it several times, and that is culture shock. A lot of people hear the term culture shock and they're like, oh yeah, you're going to a different country or a different place. Of course their culture is going to confuse you. A lot of people already know the term culture shock. They equate it to traveling or to living abroad. It's something that everyone goes through whenever they go to a new culture. So expanding a little bit on culture shock, there is, when I went to Paris on our tour, or when I went to Paris, we took a bike tour, and our tour guide told us about this thing called the Paris syndrome, which is actually a condition, like an actual condition that is recognized as when some people go to Paris and as a result of the extreme shock of it not being what they expected it to be, they kind of like have a physical reaction. And he told us apparently there was this one time, maybe I think multiple times actually, that a lot of people from Japan especially had to be airlifted out of Paris so that they could overcome their shock. And so culture shock can be very little or a lot. And so I'm hoping that this video does help you a little bit with culture shock and how to overcome it. Within culture shock, there are actually a couple of different stages, and everyone experiences culture shock differently. In these 4 stages, everyone has different time frames for them. So I'll give general time frames, I'll give kind of my time frame, and then everyone, like I said, everyone's a little bit different. So first I want to go into the definition of culture shock. Dictionary.com defines culture shock as a state of bewilderment and distress experienced by an individual who is suddenly exposed to a new, strange, or foreign social and cultural environment. So this doesn't just mean going from America to China like I did. This could even be from going from Northeast America to Southern America. It's just anytime you come across people with a different way of life as you. Now, I mentioned before about the 4 different stages of culture shock. Those stages are the honeymoon period, the frustration stage, the adjustment stage, and the acceptance stage. Now, sometimes you may hear a couple of different terms for these. I know the acceptance stage, a lot of time, a lot of people say the adaptation stage. So those are just the 4 terms that I'll be using for today. The honeymoon stage, the first stage, is kind of just like, you know, if you just got married and everything's great. It's kind of like that, where you go to this new place and you start seeing all these things. It's like when I did my first honeymoon stage in Dalian. It was, whoa, this is China. Whoa, I'm in a new country. Oh my gosh, I'm all by myself. What do I do? So in the honeymoon stage, everything is amazing. Everything that you come across, all the new foods, you're trying all these new foods, you're going to a lot of new places, you're seeing so many amazing things. If you're going to a country where foreigners are not as common, like China, they stare at you, you're treated like a celebrity, and it's just one of those things where you feel very empowered and, you know, this is the life. Everything is so super easy for me, and everyone just keeps giving me help, keeps giving me things. When I went to Sanya with a group of friends, literally every night they went to the bar. They didn't pay for any of their drinks, because so a lot of times when you go to these places, they kind of just give you things for free, or you get all this special attention, or you get a lot of help. Like, so if you go to a Korean barbecue and they're not cooking for other people, but they'll cook for you, part of that is they kind of want to listen to your conversation, even if they don't understand it. They kind of want to get to know you a little bit more. They kind of hope that one of you or all of you will speak their language so they can kind of chat with you. It's kind of like when I went to the Korean barbecue in my last vlog, the waiter there was cooking the food for us. I didn't really show him, but they weren't cooking for anyone else. Part of that was because I was a foreigner in their country, and they wanted to, he spoke a little bit of English, he wanted to practice his English a little bit. So the honeymoon period is, you can't believe that you're in a new place, everything's amazing, all this new food, all this amazing stuff to see, the new scenery, everything is new. You know, you just moved from your town where you've already known everything, you know everybody, it's time for a new adventure. Wow, everything is new, everything is amazing, everything's grand. And when I moved to Dalian, my culture shock was a little bit different, because my first term I kind of stayed inside. I didn't really have that, woo, everything's amazing until I kind of started to go out and see everything. So my culture shock in Dalian was a little unusual. But when I got to Nanjing, I kind of skipped the honeymoon period and just skipped to the second step. Kind of because I'd already been to China before, but even then I was still able to find things that were new and were exciting. So I would say my honeymoon period then lasted maybe about a week, 2 weeks. So again, it varies for everyone. I have a friend that I was just talking to yesterday, and she's been here for about 6 months, and she says that she's still in this honeymoon period where she still finds everything new, everything exciting. So that brings me to the second stage of culture shock, the frustration stage. Again, the title is kind of self-explanatory. This is the stage where anytime you start to struggle with something, it's a little bit more frustrating than it normally would be. So for instance, if you didn't speak any Chinese and you had to rely on a friend to translate every time you had to go somewhere, it's just one of those where things that you could do normally in your own country, in your own town, and you can't do it by yourself. It's extra frustrating, and it frustrates you more than normal, and then that just puts you in a deeper and fouler mood, and it's really hard. You get fatigued from trying to just readjust to this new culture. Again, it's not even if you're in another country, it's even if you're moving to a different state where they do things differently, where you go shopping and the milk is always on the left, but gosh darn it, in this state, the milk's on the right, and it's so frustrating. And it's those small things that normally wouldn't frustrate you or even make you just a little bit irritated. It's those small things that just get blown out of proportion, and you have those bad days. Now, the frustration stage is the hardest stage to get over because you do start going into that downward spiral of negativity and just upset and homesickness and I don't want to do this anymore. I just want to go back to where everything's familiar. And so it is one of the hardest stages to get over and to get out of. And it's understandable. If everything is frustrating you, it's hard to find things that you enjoy. And it's understandable that this stage is the hardest stage to get over because a lot of people tend to kind of close themselves off, to stop making new friends, to staying inside their apartment a lot more, not going out as much, not exploring as much because it's just too frustrating, it's too tiring to go out and try to figure out this new culture, this new language, this new place. It's just, no, I'm done with it, I'm done. And so a lot of times people start to seclude themselves. That brings me to our third stage, the adjustment stage. For some people, this is their final stage. This is the stage where a lot of your frustration starts to bleed away as you become more familiar with your new area. You start to go, wait, I got from my apartment to the grocery store with no help. I was able to have a conversation in Chinese with someone and they understood me. So my adjustment stage was when I was finally able to buy those train tickets, have a conversation, and I could do it myself. Again, my Nanjing culture shock was a little bit different because I had already been to Dalian. I kind of knew what to expect, but it was hard getting from that frustration stage back into the adjustment stage because I'd forgotten so much of my Chinese. I didn't have that confidence, and so having that conversation brought that confidence back. Now, the last stage is the acceptance stage. And again, no matter how long you're living in this new place, this new culture, some people never reach this stage. The acceptance stage is when you understand that you don't understand everything about the culture, but you realize that that doesn't matter, that culture is slowly becoming part of you. And even if you don't understand it, it's something you pick up. And it's just one of those where the acceptance stage is all mental. It's just knowing that you might not never know, and that's okay. Now those are the 4 stages of culture shock, which anyone can look up easily. All you gotta type in is culture shock, and you'll get the State Department with the definition, the Wikipedia definition. What I wanted to do this video on is how to deal with culture shock, especially that second stage, the frustration stage. One of the first tips I have, and I touched on this in my Japan vlog, is just walk. Because you're in that honeymoon stage, everything is going to seem amazing and new and great. And this is the time to get out and explore because you want to see everything. And because everything is going to make you so happy and make you think, make you realize like, wow, I'm in a new place. This is the period that you should be going out, meeting as many new people as possible. So you want to go out and just see as much as you can, travel as much as you can. I know, especially if you're traveling abroad or if you're moving abroad, a lot of times you don't start off with the money that you need to travel. So if you know you're going to be going abroad, start saving up your money so that when you get there and you have an opportunity, you can go and travel and you're not just stuck there. Especially if it's a place that, kind of like what Disney English did with me, is they gave me a cash advance to help me with my apartment, which I needed. But then my salary was reduced for a couple of months because I had to pay back that cash advance. So I didn't really have the money to start traveling right away. And a lot of our new trainers that come have that problem. So start saving up as much money as you can so that if you get there and your company does do something like that, you still have something saved. Or you might not have to take the cash advance because you have enough for your apartment and blah, 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 blah. Now, my next couple tips are for the frustration stage, which I will admit I did not handle as well as I would care to admit. And so frustration stage, like I said, is the hardest stage to get out of. Don't feel bad for having a bad day, because it is okay to have a bad day. It is okay that it is normal for you to feel these frustrations. That's when you should go and find your place. Now, my place was always my apartment because I'm a little bit of a hermit, the hermit that moved across the world. Again, I didn't cope the best because I kind of did that whole thing where I said don't close people off, and I secluded myself. And I just remember posting a picture of my iTouch with a book and then my Malibu and my chocolates, and like posting me like, best way to fight homesickness after having some chats with friends, reading books with some rum and chocolate. It was just like, I thankfully had someone reach out to me and say, hey, just saw your post, come out with us, come and meet some more people. And the whole point of finding your place is it's a place for you to take your mind off your home, off your old culture. So if it's staying at home or going to a coffee shop or going to the park, taking a run, reading a book, writing a story, playing a video game, going to KTV with your friends, you need to find your place that makes you feel peaceful. That brings me to another point, is reach out to your friends. If you are in your frustration period, reach out to your friends. In your honeymoon period, hopefully you met a lot of people, made some really close friends. And if they're foreigners and you're in a foreign country, if they are foreigners, they know what you're going through. They have been there. They might even still be in the frustration stage, and they might need you to help them. And so reach out to your friends, say like, hey, I'm having a bad China day. Let's go to Disney, which I have done. I have messaged my friends and saying, I'm having a bad China week. I need Disney. I'm going tomorrow. Come with me. And they came. So it's just one where reach out to your friends, because if you just seclude yourself off, then they're not going to know what's going on with you. They're going to think that, oh, this is just so-and-so being so-and-so. Maybe they don't like being social, and they might start thinking that that's the type of person you are. But if you reach out and say, hey, I'm having a bad China day, what do you suggest? They might have some tips for you. If it's a local person that is your friend, then they can show you new places and something that you may not have seen before, and that might reignite that happiness that you felt during your honeymoon period. Now, it might also be like, oh God, I've been to 20 different Chinese cities and I see the same thing every time. They might be able to point out something that's a little bit different, and that might help start bringing you into that adjustment stage where you're learning like, oh wait, okay, that's why it's this way. And I'm not doing a really good job explaining this, but it's just reach out to your friends. You don't have to go through the frustration stage alone. Now, something that me and my parents talk about all the time is that technology is amazing. When my parents were living in Japan, when my mom was pregnant with me, my mom maybe got to talk to her mom once a week, once a month, not often at all, because it was so expensive for her to pick up the phone and dial back to America. Nowadays, it's free. I just hop onto FaceTime and I can FaceTime with my family. So I've been in China for 4 Christmases now? Yes. But Friday night, I went straight home from my last class. I got on FaceTime and I was able to be with my family for Christmas. Being able to be a part of that even if it was through a camera, even if they had to set up a computer and everyone took turns coming up and saying hi to me, the fact that it was free, for one thing, like we were connected for at least 4 or 5 hours. Now, if my mom had called home in Okinawa, that would have been hundreds of dollars of bills. So, my dad, my niece, and I, one time I ran them through a stretching session because my niece is into ballet. My dad wants to get a little bit more flexible, and I want to get back my flexibility. But the fact that we had 3 generations on 2 different continents connected through a computer stretching together, like, that just boggles my mind. However, that does bring me to another point. While it's great that I can see what my friends are doing back home, and I think one reason why my frustration period was so difficult was that FOMO kicked in. For those who do not know what FOMO is, it is the fear of missing out. So being in touch with my friends was great, but seeing everything that they were doing, going to anime conventions, moving on with their lives, moving to different cities. One of my friends has moved to Japan, which I haven't seen in forever. I gotta get back to Japan. But seeing all of this going on back home made me upset because I was missing out on it. It felt like I was being erased from their lives, or they were replacing me, or they were forgetting about me. But that's not true. That was just all my mind and FOMO kicking in. Like, I was enjoying being here, but I also wanted to be there doing things with them. So every time I visit home, I try to hang out with them as much as possible, because I know once I'm back in China, I'm going to be seeing all their posts. My first year here, I had gotten a group together to go to AwesomeCon in DC. And I was so excited because this is my first time going to AwesomeCon, but then I got my acceptance for Disney English, and I had to leave in May, and AwesomeCon was later that month. So I got here, and I was exploring Nanjing and whatnot, and then I was seeing all these photos from AwesomeCon, and it was just like, that was my plan, was to go with them. But I don't begrudge them for going. AwesomeCon's pretty awesome, but it was one of those where I was really upset that I couldn't be there with them. So, like I said, technology is great, but it is a little bit of a double-edged sword. If you want to reduce culture shock, again, my friend that said that she's been here for around 6 months and she's still in the honeymoon, part of that was she asked a lot of questions. She kind of got the idea of what it was going to be like. I was from Mushu, so she was asking those questions to me. She was asking some other people. There was the Disney ambassadors. And ask a lot of questions. Find people who have already been in your situation and ask questions. Doing a lot of research, because that way something like the Paris syndrome doesn't happen to you, where you're expecting it to be like the movies and then you get there and it's not, because Paris is still amazing. So doing a little bit of research about the place you're going to. So to end up this video with a nice little bow, the 4 stages of culture shock: honeymoon, frustration, acceptance, and then adjustment. Frustration's the hardest stage. That's what a lot of people struggle with whenever they go abroad. And just remember some tips. The main thing is use your resources. Reach out to people and you will be great. You can adjust, you can do it. I believe in you. And that's all I really have to say about the topic of culture shock. That is all Botan has to say about the topic of culture shock. So thank you for joining me for this video. I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.